idea that explains why some organizations can thrive and inspire others while other people, other companies just don't. You see, every company knows what they do. We all know what they do. Most people within the company know how we do it. But very few people actually think of why we do it. And, you know, I don't mean make a profit. You know, we don't have the business to make a profit. That's a result. And that's always going to be there. It's what is your cause, what is the purpose, and what's your belief? Why do you get out of bed in the morning, and why does anyone care? Why do we put the time in, taking the phone calls? Why do we work late nights? Why do we work on the weekends? Why do we subject ourselves, if you're George especially, to scathing articles from time to time in the newspaper and from even some of our peers? Why do we do that? We do it because it's important. And you know what? The thing is, we're all very used to thinking, acting, and communicating from the outside in. From the clearest to the most fuzzy. It's clear what we do. A little more fuzzy about how we do it. Some people get lost on the why. But that's the way we're used to communicating. But you know, every single inspired leader, every single inspired company that you will find does not communicate that way. They communicate from the inside out. It's amazing. And that goes across industry lines. It goes across the size of the company. But there's a reason for it. We'll get to that in a minute. Next slide. Again, taking Apple. If Apple were like most companies, their advertisement message or marketing message might sound like, we make great computers, they're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Hey, you want to buy one? And that's how most communicating is done. That's how most marketing is done. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect someone to act. You know, a new car. Hey, we have an amazing new car. It's got wonderful leather seats. It's incredibly comfortable. You want one? We have a brand new law firm. We have amazing clients. We have the best lawyers. You should hire us. But now let's look how Apple actually communicates. They communicate from the inside out. Look at your paper there, the little circle, and think about this. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. That's the why. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? That's a dramatically different message with the exact same information presented backwards. When we talk about why we do what we do, it changes the message. You see, people want to buy why we do things, not what we do. People want to invest in why we get out of bed in the morning, not what we get out of bed in the morning for. The goal is to do business with everyone who needs what we have. That's, you know, the goal is to do business with everyone who believes in what we believe. And it's our job to take that message and to translate it out into what we do in the community. So, you know, this is not an opinion. You know, I didn't just come up with this. This is actually biology. If we get the doctors in here, I'd make them help me explain it. But you know what? If you take a cross-section of the brain, it's very much exactly like this circle here. We'll call it the golden circle. The outer section, if you're looking from the top down, is the neocortex. It responds to the outer ring, the what ring, and it's responsible for rational and analytical thought. It's how we can talk about immense things and get very detailed in explanations. It's that outer section that deals with our communication ability. The middle two sections the how and the why, are the limbic brains. All of our feelings, trust, and loyalty, all human behavior and decision making come from the limbic section. Now here's the important part. Our limbic brain has no capacity for communication, has no capacity for language. So when we communicate using this model from the outside in, people can understand all kinds of features, benefits, facts, and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. How many times have we been given tons of data about something, and we say, it just doesn't feel right? People can give us all kinds of information. We can process so much, but it doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? That's because we're communicating from the outside in. But when we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that drives behavior. And when we do that, we can rationalize it with the tangible things that we say and do. When we talk about the why we do things, when we talk about our passions, when we talk about the things that drive us, now we're speaking directly to the part of the brain that's actually going to move us into action. You see, this is where gut decisions come from. This is where, again, that it feels right. We can't quantify it. We can't put words to it because, remember, the limbic part of the brain has no capacity for words. But it does control our emotions and our decision behavior. You know, our goal is to communicate to people who believe in what we believe. So take this into what we do. We shouldn't hire people because they need a job, or even for that point, because they might be able to do the job. We need to hire people who believe what we believe, who have the same passion, who have the same goals, and who are driven by the same things that each of us are driven by on a daily basis. If you hire people because they need a job, they'll work for you because they need the money. But if you hire people who believe in what you believe, then they will work for you with blood, sweat, and tears that you just will not get from someone else. Now, the perfect example of that we mentioned earlier, the Wright brothers. You know, has anybody ever heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley? Well, he's the guy who should have been the first to create controlled, powered manned flight. Why? Incredibly well educated. He had a seat at Harvard. He was the chair of the Smithsonian Institution. He had actually created the first unmanned flight vehicle. It actually flew 4,000 feet. We couldn't put anybody on it. They had no way to control it. But you know what? When he did the first unmanned flight of that magnitude, the War Department gave him $50,000 to continue his work for powered manned flight. But Samuel Pierpont Langley was doing it for the fame, for the recognition. He wanted to get rich. He wanted to be well known. But then you had the Wright brothers, right up the road in Ohio, Orville and Wilbur. They were undercapitalized. Not a single person on their team had a college education. Not even Orville or Wilbur. They funded what they were doing from the proceeds from their bicycle shop. And when they went out to do tests, they had to take 5 sets of spare parts because they would crash that many times each time and rebuild it to keep going. But they were working with people who shared their vision. They believed that achieving controlled, powered, manned flight would change the world. And so, on December, let's keep going back, not that one. On December, I believe, 7th, 1903, December 9th, 1903, they achieved it. Unbelievably achieved it. But just to show you how Samuel Pierpont Langley felt about it, instead of saying, that's an amazing feat, I'm going to take what you guys have done, and we're going to improve upon it. He quit. He just quit. Didn't matter to him. He wasn't going to receive fame. He wasn't going to receive fortune. So he quit. So that vision, bringing people around him to work with him who understood that vision and had that same passion, it was that and those people that drove the success. Now, why is this important? I get a little scientific here. It's a thing called diffusion of innovation. Anybody ever heard of that? You've probably heard of the technology or of the language of it anyway. 2.5% is your other thing there. 2.5% of the population are innovators. 13.5% are early adopters. 34%, the early majority. The next 34%, late majority. And the final 16%, those are the laggards. Those are the people who today would still use a rotary dial phone if they made it. They just don't care. You know, I mean, it is what it is. Now, if you want mass market success, if we want success in our communities, you can't get there until you've reached a tipping point. And that tipping point is right here between 15 and 18%. Well, we talk about the things that we do and how many people we serve in our communities, and looking, you know, it's about 10%. You can trip over 10%. We don't have to do anything to get that 10%. But it's that difference between 10% and 15 to 18% that makes all the difference in the world. It's that point at which we fall over into extreme success. Now, the thing is, the early majority, which is where that comes, will not try something until somebody else does. Innovators and early adopters, those are the people who act based on emotion. Those are the ones who act based on feeling. Those are the ones we can touch based on what we believe. They are the ones who stand outside for 24 hours in line to get the latest and greatest iPhone at the Apple Store, when they could walk in a week later and buy it without waiting at all. These are the ones who, way back, paid $40,000 for a flat screen TV, which had really inferior technology. Why? Because they wanted to be first. It made them feel good. And we can speak to those people. We can speak to the innovators and the early adopters by driving our message of why we do what we do. Because they respond to that. And once we reach those people, we're able to reach that tipping point. You see, people don't want to buy what you do. They buy why you do it. Now, I'm going to talk about some commercial failures that have worked in that area, or at least one. TiVo. Everybody heard of TiVo? Hey, from the time that TiVo came out, it was consistently considered to be one of the cleanest, best technologies in the market. I mean, we actually use TiVo as a verb. You know, I TiVoed it. But the problem is, when they went to their IPO, their initial stock was $30 to $40. It went way down to about $6 and has hovered around there ever since. It's been a commercial failure. Why? Because the message was, they had a product that pauses live TV, rewinds live TV, skips commercial, it even memorizes your viewing habits without you even asking. And people said, that's creepy. People said, I'm not so sure about that. What if their message had been, if you are the type of person who likes to have total control over everything in your life, then boy, do we have a product for you. We have a product that pauses live TV, it rewinds live TV, and it memorizes your viewing habits. And then you go, wow, that's something I could use. Because we spoke to the why first. If you're the type of person who wants to have control over every aspect of your life, that's why we do it. We're telling them why these things are important. Now the message doesn't seem creepy at all. Now it solves my problem. So, the summer of 1963, 250,000 people showed up on the Mall of Washington, D.C. to hear Dr. Martin Luther King speak. Amazingly, this wasn't on Facebook. There was no save the dates. There was no put it on your calendars. There was no email blast. Now, Martin Luther King certainly was not the only man who suffered social injustice. He was not the only great orator of the time. But he didn't tell us what we needed to do or could do for change. What did he say? I believe. And as I Have a Dream speech, he said, I believe, I believe, I believe. It wasn't the I have a plan speech or I have a complaint speech. It was the I believe speech. And when people could buy into and understand that vision, when people could understand that message and that mission, they showed up at the right place, at the right time, on the right day to hear him speak. You know, there are leaders and there are those who lead. And we have to ask ourselves, which one are we? You see, leaders hold a position of authority. Period. Those who lead inspire us. Let's look at that again. Leaders merely hold a position of authority. But those who lead inspire us to take an action to follow them. We must begin to focus on what we believe and make that a core part of how we do business and how we communicate our message. We must look for those individuals in our organization who believe what we believe. We need to look and promote and work with those individuals in our organization who believe what we believe and promote our ideas. Let's look for a minute. Let's look at our why. Okay? Back on your sheet, the center. And I just came up with this, but I think it's fairly accurate. We believe that rural America deserves community-based, quality, progressive, and affordable health care. Does everyone in here believe that?
Hallelujah.
We believe that rural America deserves community-based, quality, progressive, and affordable health care. That's why we empower innovative professionals to institute cutting-edge medical programs. Our hospital is here for you and your family. That takes our message and turns it around in such a way that we can use that in our communities and in our own hospitals to change the dynamics. When we start speaking to that limbic part of the brain, where we can speak to why people do what they do and why we can get people to act in such a way to utilize our services, then we'll be able to reach that tipping point at each of our hospitals where we're able to drive the community back to our community-based healthcare systems. How many of you here right now believe that first statement and believe the second statement as well? You know, all of you heard George, myself, and others talk about saving the hospitals in rural America. This wasn't a one-time statement. This hasn't been a marketing campaign. Why? Because we've never marketed that. But you know what? Moving forward, I want us to live by these things every day in what we do and how we communicate our message. We believe that rural America deserves community-based. And let me stop there. All the big hospitals out there, oh, they would tell you they believe that people in rural community deserve great health care. But they just don't believe it should be out there in your community. They believe that people in rural communities should have great health care. But you need to come to the city to have it done. Well, you know what? That doesn't work. That doesn't work because too many people are lost on that drive between our rural hospitals and the major city hospital when they weren't stabilized first. When they suffer irreparable harm from that stroke, or they die because they weren't stabilized when they're in the middle of a heart attack. Between where there used to be a rural hospital and that university-based or larger hospital, the big city. They don't wake up every morning telling themselves that rural America deserves community-based, quality, progressive, and affordable health care. But we do. And let's make it a point to lead with what we believe. Let's talk about what we believe and get people excited about our vision. Let's start hiring people not only for their ability to do the job, but because they share our vision. We want people who want to come to the community. You know, that's what's so special about Drs. Vish and Kumar. They share our vision. They believe what we believe. They talked about it yesterday. They've left their practice in the larger city to take it out to the rural community, not because they needed to. They had a job. But they believe what we believe. And so you know what? They're going to work twice as hard to carry out that vision, because when you operate from a point of belief, you're able to defy expectations and make great things happen. What are we doing in our communities? Go back one more. Sorry. It's all right. What are we doing in our communities to reach that tipping point? What are we doing in our communities to let the community know what we believe? Have we just told them that we have great opportunities? Have we just told them about our great doctors and our great programs? It's not to say that those things are not important, but it doesn't drive action. What drives action is telling them what we believe, and why we believe it, and why they should come to our hospital. So I thank you guys for what you're doing, and let's go out and make some changes with this. Thank you.
Thank you, JT. That wraps up this part. Let's get some pictures, huh?
Let's go get them.